from talking smack despite not performing on the court anymore, to throwing a huge party in the middle of the pandemic. Here's why Novak Djokovic needs to be canceled. Being the winner of a record of 23 Grand Slam titles, the Serbian's arguably the greatest player in tennis history. He's got a better head-to-head record against Rafael Nadal and Roger Federer. And he reigned as the #1 player long time, which was brought to an end in 2023 by the young Spaniard Carlos Alcaraz. Still, Novak's regarded as one of the best players in the world, and he deserves that top spot, because he's won everything there is to win in the sport. But it's not just his wins that make headlines. Novak has found himself in the center of controversial storms countless times. Joker's never been liked because of his behavior, and fans call this an ego problem, a problem that's landed him in tricky situations, even with the authorities. And now people are waiting for the day he hangs up his racket, especially after 2 of the big 3 have already announced theirs. Now, very few athletes cross the 40-year mark. After all, your body is at its prime till you hit the 30s, and after that, it's all downhill. This is even more true for tennis players, because even the ones who do play well into their 30s often have a hard time dealing with injuries. Our Grand Slam king Roger, for instance, had his fair share of injuries before retiring at 41. And after Nadal announced his retirement in 2024, all eyes are on Novak, the last of the big 3. But as far as he's concerned, he still believes that he's got enough juice in him to last for another few years. That belief is only fueled by his passion to break records, even though he's already broken so many. But while he does talk big, his performance in the past few matches hasn't been very record-breaking. Sure, he's won the Roland Garros in 2023, but he's lost more matches this past year than he's ever done in his career. Though the most shocking loss was definitely against the reigning Wimbledon champ Alcaraz, and now people are questioning whether he's even good enough to compete at the top level. Even his father wants him to say goodbye to the court. He said Novak's achieved whatever he wanted many years ago, and it's time for him to move on to better things in life. Besides, while the Serb hasn't said anything about his retirement, many believe his time on the court has reached an end. So, will he leave tennis for the next generation? Only time will tell. It's not just his performance on the court that's making people question him, though, because his behavior's been bad as well. No matter how good you are, if you can't deal with your emotions, you're bound to get hate. And well, Novak's in the same boat, because even though he's arguably the greatest tennis player ever, he's not exactly a role model for his fans or other players. He's built a reputation for being a bit of a spoiled brat, and whether it's his manic celebration over a win or shouting at the poor ball boys, he's done it all. We all got to see his ugly side during the match against Alcaraz as well, because right as his frustration levels reached a boiling point in the match, Novak started shouting at a ball boy. Fans felt real bad upon seeing the poor boy's expression and couldn't help but criticize Novak's behavior and sportsmanship. Pop icon Britney Spears' husband Sam Asghari also commented on the incident, saying a player's only a champion if he leads by example, and you're not greater than others if you act like this. He called it terrible behavior, and most people agreed with him. But this isn't even the worst thing that happened in the match. Seeing the Wimbledon slipping out of his hands, Novak let his emotions get the best of him. The finale had the fans on the edge of their seats. Novak dominated the first set, but with each passing shot, the match started turning in the Spaniard's favor, who took the lead 2 sets later. It was during the 5th and last set that Novak totally lost his cool. After a gripping exchange of shots, Novak lost his own service game and, well, he totally lost his patience. He smashed his racket into the net post out of pure frustration. The whole crowd was booing, and the umpire took notice of the incident too. So not only did Novak lose the Wimbledon final, but he also lost $10,000 in fines and, of course, his fans' respect. This isn't the first time something like this has happened, though. In the 2020 US Open, Novak found himself in hot waters because of his anger. The tournament had no room for an audience because of the pandemic, so we saw an eerie match between Novak and Carreño Busta. The champ was once again under pressure, as Carreño got a 6-5 lead. The frustration led Novak to hit a stray ball into the empty stands for the 17th time. Now it's common for players to hit the balls in frustration, and Novak's done this many times in other tournaments too. But this time the ball took another direction and headed straight for the line judge. And to everyone's horror, it hit her straight in the throat. Oh, and her injury was so bad that she had to resign from the court. Novak called it an accident, but the officials couldn't let this slide, and so he was disqualified from the tournament. This incident led to an uproar amongst the sports fans, calling Novak out for his rash actions. They said he needs to work on his temper, cause it's no fun watching a sore loser. With that being said, while his behavior on the court is driven by his frustration, he doesn't have a better reputation outside of it either. We all remember the COVID era when everyone was being super careful, and governments had special protocols in place. I mean, the pandemic was rough, and just like everyone, athletes had to adhere to the rules as well. But guess what? Our egotistical champ thought the virus wasn't a serious problem, so he wasn't willing to wear a face mask, let alone be vaccinated. The real drama came before the 2022 Australian Open, though, when he got banned because of his anti-vax status. But it wasn't just the Australians who didn't let him play. He couldn't get into the US Open either. And after he was deported and banned from those tournaments, fans expected him to get his shots. But the Serbian stood his ground. Fun fact, he still isn't vaccinated.
I say that everyone has the right to choose to act or say whatever they feel is appropriate for them.
We all know how grave the pandemic was and how many people lost their lives because of it. But the tennis champ had little regard for that and risked his and others' lives with his actions. This is just the tip of the iceberg, though, because we saw something even more problematic during the pandemic. I mean, throwing a huge party in the middle of quarantine sounds absurd, but our champ has done more than just that. Believe it or not, but in a time when even going to the store was hard, Novak arranged a tennis tournament meant to be held in 4 countries. This was during peak COVID times when even the WHO was running in circles. Djokovic was ignorant of the precautions and went on to invite many pro players from around the globe. When the whole world was shut, the gates to his tennis matches were open. With zero respect to social distancing and basic quarantine requirements, all the fans and players were clustered together. But that's not all. The players had full-blown parties where they were seen hugging and dancing with each other. Did they not get exposed to the virus? Well, they all tested positive for the virus, including the Serbian and his team. Everyone was mad at Novak, including other tennis stars. Even Nick Kyrgios, who's known for his stupid antics, called the Serbian dumb. And what did the tennis champ have to say about it? Well, as usual, he tweeted out his apology and went on to live his life without any real repercussions. But fans can't ignore that and are now calling for him to step back from his career. Either be a real sportsman and have some respect for others, or just don't play. Sure, he's one of the greatest tennis players of our time, but he still has a lot to learn about being a great sportsman. And now, he gets booed every single time he steps onto the court, with fans rooting for the player on the opposite side. So there you have it. From throwing a huge party in the middle of the pandemic, to talking smack despite not performing on the court anymore. That's why Novak Djokovic needs to be canceled.